Are you sitting comfortably? Are you sitting as comfortably as this fellow is? Now, I wonder how many of you recognize this character. It's a human from the future, according to the film Wall-E. Now, in this Pixar movie, it paints a dystopian future where humans have ruined the planet. We've covered it with litter, we've polluted it, we've had to abandon Earth, and we've gone out into space, and the humans of the future, not the very far future, spend their time moving around in big padded chairs. We've stopped walking. We don't walk anymore. And we eat continually. We just need to put our hands out, grab some more food. So we just graze, continue throughout the day. And humans of the future spend all of their time looking at displays, just staring at screens. Couldn't happen here, could it? Unthinkable. Well, Michael Easter has written a book called The Comfort Crisis. And he says, actually, we are living lives of obscene levels of comfort. And the problem is, who wouldn't want to be comfortable? But the problem is we are going soft as a consequence. Physically soft, but also psychologically soft. We are less resilient to challenges. The book is actually set in the Arctic. It's a really well-written book. And it talks about, he spent about a month traveling through the Arctic, experiencing hardship. But during this tale, he talks about multiple dimensions of discomfort that he says we need to experience if we are going to thrive. And today I'll be talking about 7 of those types of discomfort and why we need to do something about it so that we can thrive. Now, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Eric Winters, and what I do for a living is I help people have better conversations at work. What kind of conversations? Well, coaching conversations, partly. I help leaders to learn skills to talk to their people in ways that are solution-focused and collaborative, rather than telling people what to do, helping people to think for themselves. I also train organizations to help people have more difficult conversations, giving critical feedback, for example, in ways that build relationships rather than damage them. And I also help people to have collaborative conversations so that we can disagree with one another respectfully at work. But we're in a time now where we really want to embrace diversity. We need to hear all voices. We need to hear all different perspectives, but we need to be willing to have conversations that perhaps we haven't had in the past. So we're going to begin today. I'm going to share one of my most treasured holiday experiences. It is relevant to the book. It was a cycling trip I took around the west coast of Canada. And while I was there, the most impactful memory was waking up one morning, camping on a beach, far west coast of Canada, and seeing a pod of 24 killer whales swim past. 24. Now, the thing you need to know about a killer whale, if you've not seen one in the wild, is that they're big. They're really big. That dorsal fin you see there, it's about 2 meters high. Okay, about 6 foot, 2 meters. Absolutely massive. And when 24 of these things swim past, what they bring to mind are submarines, because submarines also have a kind of a fin, a rigid, strong fin. Absolutely magnificent. But what happens when we take a wild animal like that and we put it into captivity? Well, as you perhaps know, they do not thrive physically. That magnificent dorsal fin collapses. Now, why? Well, perhaps it's obvious. These animals are supposed to be cruising through the oceans, covering large numbers of kilometers every day, hunting food. And when you take a wild animal and you put it in a fish tank, you enclose it and you feed it, so it doesn't have to get its own food even. It doesn't have to travel. Life's too easy. They become soft, their bodies wither. We are not so different. You and I are also wild animals. Humans, for most of history, well, prehistory, for most of the time that humans have been on Earth, we have been wild animals. We have had it hard. We've had it very difficult. We've been traveling in the wild, long distances, hunting for food, experiencing hardship. But that hardship challenges us, and we respond well to challenge. We get stronger. And Michael makes the point in his book, it's not just physically stronger, we become mentally stronger. We become more resilient. We become psychologically robust when we live more like the way our ancestors did. Now, what I've tried to show in this pie chart here is the amount of time that we have had it tough. So the orange part of the pie chart is the time that humans have been on Earth and we have been cold and hungry and tired and fighting to stay alive. That tiny sliver is the amount of time that we've had in our human history in which we have had it easy. We've been able to just reach out and get food. We've been warm. We've been safe. Know that your biology is one of a wild animal, and you have evolved to experience hardship and discomfort and respond positively to it. Now, that's not happening anymore. Now, there's two problems that we have today. One is that it's natural for us to seek comfort, because for most of human history, there was very little comfort to go around. So if an opportunity arose to be dry, great, take it. If an opportunity arose to be warm, fantastic, let's grab that. Food, eat it, brilliant. But today, those comforts are available everywhere, but we've still got the same programming. Expend less energy and seek comfort. Now, the real problem happens when you combine it with the second factor, and that is what we all experience is a phenomenon called comfort creep. And what we're saying here is that the comforts that we have today, that we feel absolutely fantastic and just wonderful, they become tomorrow's discomforts as we adapt, as we get used to them. So, there was a time when having cold running water was a phenomenal innovation, brilliant. But then we have to have warm running water. And then we've got to get the temperature just right. And so it just keeps going on. And our tolerance for discomfort is being eroded severely. So when you combine comfort creep with our attraction to feeling comfortable, it heads towards a Wall-E future, which doesn't seem so far away, does it really? And I was reflecting on the Wall-E film a while back as I was driving somewhere. I thought, well, at least we don't sit in big comfy seats and just float around. But I was in a car as I had this thought. And of course, I was in a big comfy seat, just moving my foot a little bit to cover large amounts of territory. We need to be willing to experience a bit more discomfort. So there are 7 discomforts we're going to talk about today. The first one is the discomfort of exertion, of movement. Now, there's a Tanzanian hunter-gatherer tribe that's still around today called the Hadza. And the Hadza, those that study humans and human lifestyles, these anthropologists believe that they're pretty much representative of how most of us lived until quite recently. And they will exercise, they don't call it exercise, they call it life, but they will exert themselves seriously for about 2.5 hours every single day. Every single day, their pulse is up. And it turns out that humans, you perhaps know, we're designed to move. We're supposed to move. We're supposed to walk and maybe jog every day. And the reason that humans, unlike most animals, are hairless, some of us have really taken this to extremes, but the reason that we're hairless is so that we can run after animals in the heat and we won't overheat. So we don't surprise wild animals apparently, in order to catch them and eat them, we'll just run after them all day. And they will keep running ahead, running ahead. But because they're furry, they overheat. And what ancient man and the Hadza still do is ultimately they just walk up to the animal and bash it on the head and carry it back. So we're designed to do a lot of walking or gentle jogging and then put weight on our shoulders and carry it back. The exercise that Michael Easter advocates isn't so much running, because running, as you'll know, it's quite hard on the joints when we run. What he advocates, and there's a growing movement to do this, is actually something called rucking. And in rucking, you put a rucksack, regular rucksack, on your back, and you put some weights in it. And you just walk with weights. And that is a really good exercise for the body. It activates all the core muscles, but it doesn't have as much of a punishing impact on your joints. Although you've got more weight on you, you're not sort of jumping up and down. So it's kinder. Apparently it has 1/3 the impact on your joints if you walk with weights in your rucksack. So movement, we need to move in our days, not just once, but repeatedly. We need to be up. But of course we sit. Most of us spend a lot of our lives sitting during our days. This is number one, discomfort number one, discomfort of exertion and movement. Number two, hunger. Now, of course, in modern life, we have access to food pretty much 24 hours a day. We don't ever have to feel hunger. And we don't have to hunt our food anymore. We can just reach out, if we're in a store, and just reach out and grab the food. Or we can have it delivered to us. This is quite a recent innovation now. We can just tap on our phones and just have the food come to us, sort of Wall-E style, really. No need to even move towards our food. My goodness. But it turns out our physiology is designed in such a way that it works well when we don't continually digest food. We need extended periods where we have nothing in our stomachs that needs digesting. And perhaps a number of you are aware, there's a lot of interest now in, they're calling it fasting, but it's not really fasting, just extending the period of time that you don't eat from nighttime, because most of us are not eating while we're asleep, but it's extending that out perhaps to 12 or 16 hours, does good things to our cell metabolism and our cell regeneration, clears up early signs of cancer, apparently. We need to get better at experiencing mild hunger. The Hadza, that Tanzanian hunter-gatherer tribe, they report to anthropologists that they are continually hungry. All right, it's a normal state. It's not an emergency to feel hunger, not an emergency. But for most of us, we don't allow ourselves to feel real hunger for very long at all, because we don't have to. And we're missing out on the physiological benefits as a result. So that's number two, hunger. Number three, the cold. Now, there's a group of, it's a sort of a village of Japanese women that spend their entire lives diving for shellfish, abalone and maybe lobster, but they're in the water diving in 10-degree water, right? Really cold water. And the people that have studied them find that they don't suffer from the kind of physiological sicknesses that most of us do. They're not suffering from cardiac problems and diabetes problems and problems with the liver, pretty much everything. They do suffer from, some of them, from deafness, from diving down deep, but their bodies are in really good shape. And they've turned out that these people have, they're burning up an extra 1,000 calories every day. And it's because their brown fat reserves, little patches of brown fat that we've all got, but theirs are active, they're turned on, and they are creating warmth from regular fat. They're burning up regular fat because they're cold. We need to feel cold from time to time. But we live in very temperature controlled environments, don't we? We can adjust the thermostat. We can keep it at a very level, perfect temperature. A lot of us don't allow ourselves to feel cold. Now, I'm not a very big fan of the cold shower, I have to admit, but apparently it's good for us. Quick bursts. So in the chat box, I'll be very interested in hearing if any of you are advocates of the cold shower, or if you do anything else in your life deliberately to feel cold, or are you like me and actually you quite like feeling warm? Ice skating island. No, that doesn't count. I'm assuming you're dressed. Yeah. So no, if you're dressed, it doesn't count. Karen, you're a cold showerer, and yeah, I hear it. People feel more invigorated, more alive, more awake. And look, Sally, you're good for about 5 seconds of the cold shower, I think. Yeah, I know what you mean. I have experimented with it. Yeah, and Joe, you're a hot shower lover. Oh, a hot shower, it's a joy, isn't it? But we perhaps want to consider having hot showers a little bit more often. Oh my goodness, Andrew, you're an ice bath person. All credit to you. I've heard fabulous things for those people who are willing to do it. And look, Mon, you also enjoy your warmth. Wim Hof. Look, it's a lot of you here are doing occasional cold showering. Great. And I think you are an inspiration to the rest of us. There are really good physiological reasons why we all ought to allow ourselves to feel cold. Now, look, if you don't like the idea of a cold shower, the other thing that you can do, which has a big difference, is just being cool at night. And the perfect temperature is 17 degrees C, apparently. 17. So that's not that cool. But our metabolism jumps if we allow ourselves to feel cool at night. And we sleep better too. Okay, moving on. Jump back to my screen here. The cold. Next, being outdoors, the outside. Now you might think, well, what's uncomfortable about that? Well, apparently we spend about 93% of our lives now indoors, inside, whereas we should be spending more of our time outside in the natural world, seeing the full spectrum of light and of course moving outside, doing exercise outside. Incredibly, 500,000 Japanese youth spend their lives indoors for at least 6 months at any time. Right now, there are 500,000 people who have not left their room for 6 months. And they're not mentally ill. They're just making a decision that they don't want the stresses and strains and anxiety and the uncertainty of being in the outside world. And astonishingly, 1/3 of that 500,000 have not been outside for 7 years. Extraordinary statistics. We need to get outside, but especially we need to be outside and unplugged, not listening to podcasts. Research by the University of Michigan has looked at people who've been outside just for short periods, several times a week. So this is 20 minutes walking through parks 3 times a week. And they've looked at another group of people also walking through parks, but with their plugged into their phones, listening to podcasts, listening to the radio, listening to the news. All of the benefits, the psychological benefits, the increases in productivity, sense of calm that you get from being unplugged are lost if you're walking outside listening to music. We need to be willing to spend more of our time in nature, outside, but not plugged in. Now, I love listening to podcasts outside. And this is a hard one for me. But there are 2 reasons why we all might want to experiment with this. And that's that, well, one, if we're outside, we will be more creative as a result. We will be more creative if we're not plugged in, if we allow our minds to wander. This came up in the last webinar when we were talking about focus. We need to allow our minds to wander when we're outside and be unplugged. But in addition, we'll just be calmer, more productive people if we allow our attention to look around and to observe what's actually happening in our environment. So instead of being in our heads, thinking about what we're listening to actually be present to the world that we're in. Next one. Now, this is a big problem for many of us. I'd be keen to hear how many people can relate to this. And it's the fact that nowadays we tend not to allow ourselves to feel bored at all. The moment we feel slightly bored, we will reach for our phones. Sarah, I'm equally guilty. Look, I talk about this, but I'm equally guilty. We don't have to be bored at any time anymore. Not for an instant. We can watch any film that's ever been. And there was a time, of course, wasn't there? There was a time when you'd say, what's on tonight? What's on TV tonight? Well, I'll tell you what's on TV tonight. And right now, every film that's ever existed is on now, right now, at this moment. We have such access to films, to books, and to entertainment. When we reach for a phone, and look, I'm saying we because it's me too. When we reach for a phone just because, we just have a little look, and we self-soothe like that. Every time we do it, we slightly erode our tolerance to stress. We diminish ourselves just a little more. Every time we become less resilient. It matters. We need to get better at being with ourselves, being slightly bored, because when we're bored, our mind starts exploring, it starts creating, it starts thinking for itself. This is a problem. I'm looking at the admissions of phone stimulation. And look, Sally, yeah, you too, me, yes, me as well. Rashan, you've always got to be doing something. We don't. It feels that way, doesn't it? It feels, oh, I've got to do something. I've got to use my time productively. But actually being bored is a productive use of our time if we allow our minds to explore. Next, another discomfort. You might say new? No, I love the new. I love variety. I love difference. Well, do you? All of us at times tend to we get stuck into ruts. We go to the same cafes, if you like cafes or restaurants, we order the same food, we go to the safe bet. Can anyone relate to that? I have a guilty habit if I go to a Thai restaurant of ordering my known and familiar dishes. Now, it might be the chicken pad Thai in my case, or it's something, there'll be something, oh, the pad siu. Oh, I love a pad siu. Oh, Eileen, you and me both, hey, the pad siu. We zoom in on our safe, predictable options. But we also need to expose ourselves to newness, not just in food, but in the places we go, the streets that we walk down, the podcasts that we listen to, the papers that we might read. We need to expose ourselves to new ideas. The problem with not having novelty is that life can feel like it speeds up. Now, we've mentioned this in an earlier book review, didn't we? That when you get older, the experience of time, it seems to speed up. And it's partly because life becomes more familiar. When you're young, everything is new. Everything is new. Oh my goodness, a leaf. Look at this leaf. It's amazing. And after you've seen a few leaves, yeah, we just walk right past them. We need to get more willing to expose ourselves to difference, see different things, hear different things, do different things. It challenges us in a healthy way. And finally, death. Oh, we don't like to think about this, but we're mortal. We're not here forever. I wish we were. I'm one of the people that wish we were here forever. This is that's the biggest uncomfortable thought. We veer away from it. Oh, I don't want to be maudlin. What's the point of dwelling on that? Well, those who listened to the book review on 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman, brilliant book, will remember that it's not so much thinking about death, but we need to think about how much life we have left, because it's not going on forever. What does 4,000 weeks look like? Well, you might recall it looks something like this. Here's a spreadsheet. It's got 52 weeks. Each cell is a week. 52 across, and I've put in 80 down. 52. Now look, you might get 90 years. I don't know, 95. But either way, we've all got a limited number of weeks. And the truth is, we're not going to get them all. Not everyone gets their full allotment, but it all stops for all of us. So imagine every week of your life revisiting this spreadsheet and filling in another one so that you could see your remaining time on earth is eroded with every single week. Time is precious. People who are willing to remind themselves just occasionally, oh yeah, that's right, we've only got a certain amount of time on earth, they have a greater sense of purpose, meaning, and well-being. They feel happier in their lives. Now you'd think all that thinking about death and they'd be miserable, but they're not, because they value the time that they have and they don't squander it. They're spending less time on these things and more time doing things that really matter. So we have looked at a number of ideas. We started off talking about how we humans, we're really wild animals, and we've been sort of domesticated. We shouldn't be living like that. Yes, we're comfort seeking. That's part of our makeup. But with this phenomenon of comfort creep, if allowed to, and nowadays it's very easy to, we will increasingly have more and more comfort. Our idea of what is comfort is diminished, and we get softer and softer lives, and our bodies and minds get softer as a result. So there were 7 challenges. One, to have more exertion, greater movement in our lives. And I'm wondering which of these 7 you might want to dial up in your life. Is it movement? Is it allowing yourself to feel mild hunger occasionally? Is it feeling cool? Would you let yourself feel cool from time to time? Is it spending more time outside? Is it being willing to be bored, not continually stimulated? Is it exposing yourself to more novelty, more new things, to difference? Or is it to turn every now and again to the fact that our time on earth is limited and today is an extraordinarily valuable gift? In the chat box, which one of those is going to be something you'll be willing perhaps to dial up? Which discomfort, if you're going to pick one? Rishan, boredom. Yeah, me too. It is hard, Pegger. I know it's hard. Look, a lot of us are saying boredom. Siobhan, you too. Monica, yeah, it's been cold. Ocean swims on the menu. Good for you. I'd like to hear how that goes. Graham, considering death and the limited life that we have. A lot of you saying boredom. Paul, great to see you're here too. Wonderful. Boredom, Ingo. Ingo, great to have you on board. Sarah, look, a lot of us are saying boredom. Andrew, it's novelty, it's newness. And Paul, you're gonna put hunger on top of your boredom. People, we're at the end of our half an hour. Thank you for joining me. And look, my challenge to you is to take steps just for the next 7 days, just as an experiment, to actually allow yourself to feel the discomfort that you've chosen and notice what difference it makes. Enjoy your discomforts. Bye for now.